Okay, so good evening everyone, and today in this session I am going to discuss anatomy FMG MCQ discussions. Few anatomy MCQs. As we know, the FMG exam is coming, so in this session I am going to discuss the MCQs based on the FMG pattern. Now, myself Dr. Mona Lisa, and I am faculty of anatomy subject on the NEET PG Unacademy platform. You can use the link below which is provided here, and with this link you can join the Telegram group of Unacademy platform, and you can also use my own group link which is provided below, and this you can be a member of this group, and you can type your doubts. You can ask the doubts about the upcoming sessions or anything which you didn't understand about the anatomy subject. You can ask me, and also I will tell about my code, that is Dr. Lisa YT. You can use this code for 10% discount if you want to subscribe the Unacademy platform, or if you want to take the subscription of Unacademy NEET PG platform. Okay, so before starting the session, I would also like to give you the important information of the upcoming batch of Focus NEET PG 2022. Okay, so this is about NEET PG 2022. So I wish all of you will pass out with flying colors in the FMG exam, and then you have to face the NEET PG. So this is a session which is going to start from the 1st September and will end on 25th December. Okay, so you can be the member of this session. If you want to enroll it, you can enroll it, and you can use my code, that is Dr. Lisa YT. Now, starting with today's session. So starting with the first MCQ of today's session: which of the following muscle produces intorsion of the eyeball? So 4 options are provided. As you can see, 4 options are there: superior rectus or superior oblique, inferior rectus or inferior oblique, inferior rectus or superior oblique, or superior rectus or inferior oblique. Okay, so for the explanation of these MCQ, it is important for you to know the action of each and every extraocular muscle. So I will in brief tell you about the extraocular muscles, just the action, the name of the extraocular muscles and the action. Now this is a very important MCQ which is often included. So I have seen the pattern of FMG exam, and what I have seen that they always include the nerve supply or also the action of extraocular muscles. Okay, so let me first write the list of all extraocular muscles. So please write down the list of extraocular muscles. So as I told you, there is 7 extraocular muscles. So write down the list. The muscles are following: LPS, that is levator palpebrae superioris, superior rectus muscle, inferior rectus muscle, the lateral rectus muscle, the medial rectus muscle, and also the 2 obliques, superior oblique and the inferior oblique. Okay, so these are the list of the 7 extraocular muscles which I have written here, and you have to know the action of each of these extraocular muscles. This is very important for your FMG entrance examination. Okay, so firstly I would like to show you the muscles on this diagram. So how they are located and where they are located in relation to the eyeball. Okay, so let me just label these muscles. Okay, so this muscle which you are seeing, if I talk about this muscle, this is going towards upper aspect and going towards the upper eyelid. It will go and insert into the upper eyelid. So this muscle is LPS. Okay, also the another muscle which you can see here, which is in relation to this, but it is oblique direction. As you can see, it is in oblique direction. You can visualize here. This muscle is passing obliquely and also attaching to the posterior inferior quadrant of the eyeball. This muscle is SO, means superior oblique muscle. Okay, and just below the superior oblique muscle you can see the fibers of superior rectus muscle. So this is superior rectus muscle. So we can see three muscle which is lying superiorly, as you have seen in this diagram. Now moving to the inferior group of muscles. So again the muscle which is obliquely seen on the inferior aspect. So this is IO, means inferior oblique muscle. Underneath is the inferior rectus muscle. So this is IR, means inferior rectus muscle. Now we are viewing the eyeball from the lateral aspect. So the muscle which lies on the lateral aspect of the eyeball, here the cut part of the muscle which is shown, this is LR, means lateral rectus muscle. Now a part of the medial rectus muscle is also seen. So this muscle fibers which you are seeing is the medial rectus muscle. So yes, we have seen the location of all the muscles in this diagram. As you can see, we can see the location of all the extraocular muscle which I have enumerated here. Now coming to the action of individual muscle. So I would also like to discuss in brief about the action of all the 7 extraocular muscles, which is very important for your upcoming FMG exam. Okay, so let's write LPS. The first muscle, that is LPS. Okay, now LPS muscle is lying on the superior aspect and it is inserting into the upper eyelid, and the major action which it performs is the elevation of upper eyelid. So write down, it causes elevation of upper eyelid. Okay. Now coming to the other muscle, that is SR, means superior rectus. I am not writing the full form once more because we have already written the full form in the initial slide. This is superior rectus muscle, and superior rectus muscle is elevating, it is causing elevation of the eyeball. Okay, so this is the most important or primary action of superior rectus muscle. Along with it, it also causes adduction. It also causes adduction and intorsion. Intorsion of the eyeball. So 3 actions superior rectus muscle is causing. One is just according to its name, superior rectus, causing elevation of the eyeball, adduction of the eyeball and intorsion of the eyeball. Now moving to inferior rectus. Inferior rectus is causing depression of the eyeball. Along with it, it also causes adduction and just opposite its name, that is extorsion. Which movement? Extorsion. So inferior rectus is causing extorsion. Okay. Now moving to the oblique muscles. So we have got 2 oblique and medial and lateral rectus. So we have discussed 3 of it. Now coming to LR, means lateral rectus, and then MR means medial rectus. So according to its name, it's very easy to remember. Lateral rectus will move the eyeball laterally, so it is causing abduction of eyeball, and medial rectus is causing adduction of eyeball according to its name. Now action of superior oblique and that of inferior oblique is exactly opposite its name. So how you are going to remember? Superior and inferior oblique actions are opposite to its name, exactly opposite to its name. As we have seen, the superior rectus and inferior rectus is also causing opposite action, but the rectus is causing, superior rectus is causing elevation and inferior rectus is causing depression. So this is exactly according to its corresponding name. But oblique action is entirely different corresponding to its name. So superior oblique will cause intorsion. It will cause intorsion, it will cause abduction and depression of eyeball. Now moving to inferior oblique will cause extorsion of eyeball, abduction of eyeball and elevation of eyeball. So this is exactly opposite to its name. As you can see, it is exactly opposite to its name. So yes, we have done with the action of each of these muscles, each of the 7 extraocular muscles. Now moving to the MCQ. Now the MCQ was, which of the following muscle produce intorsion of the eyeball? The correct answer is intorsion of the eyeball is caused by superior rectus and superior oblique. So this is the correct option. Okay, now moving to the next MCQ. Which of the following muscle forms the floor of digastric triangle? Floor of digastric triangle. So for this, in brief, we will see the boundaries and the floor content of the digastric triangle. So then we will again come to this option. So digastric triangle is also called as mandibular, submandibular triangle. So this is, just note down, digastric triangle is also called as submandibular triangle. So it is called a submandibular triangle because it contains submandibular gland. Now let's see, let me just highlight this diagram. So I am enlarging this diagram. So here you can see I am just enlarging this diagram. And the area of digastric triangle is, so let me use, the area of digastric triangle is this. So I am encircling this part, and this whole area is of digastric triangle. Okay, so the part which I have just highlighted here is the digastric triangle. Now coming to its boundary, so what you can see here, okay, so I am just using this. So this muscle belly is, let me use black color. This muscle belly is anterior belly of digastric, and it forms, this is anterior belly of digastric. This muscle is anterior belly of digastric muscle, and this is forming antero-inferior boundary. It is forming antero-inferior boundary. Okay. Now moving to the posterior aspect, that is postero-inferiorly. So let me just highlight it. So you can see two muscle bellies. One is this and the other is this. So you can see two muscle bellies are here. Let me just label it. Okay, so postero-inferiorly it is bounded by, if we talk about postero-inferior boundary, it is bounded by, this is posterior belly of digastric. This muscle is posterior belly of digastric muscle. I will write the information also, don't worry. And the other muscle which you are seeing is the stylohyoid muscle. Okay, so two muscles, stylohyoid and that of posterior belly of digastric muscle. Posterior belly of digastric muscle, these two muscle is lying on the postero-inferior aspect. Now coming to the base and that of its apex. Okay, so you can see this is the apex, this part is the apex. Okay, this part is the apex, and the apex is formed by intermediate tendon of, this is the apex, and apex is formed by intermediate tendon of the two muscle bellies. Okay, two muscle bellies, as you can see, this is the posterior belly and this is the anterior belly. Okay, so this is P and this is A. So both this anterior and posterior bellies of digastric muscle is joined at the apex, and this forms the apex. Now superiorly we have got, if we talk about the superior aspect, so superiorly we have got, as you can see, the base of the mandible going towards the mastoid process. So this whole is forming the base of the triangle, of the digastric triangle. So in this diagram we have understood about the boundaries of digastric triangle, and also in the inner aspect we can see two muscles. So anteriorly you can see one muscle is here, and also we can see other muscle on the posterior. So two muscles we can see, one is mylohyoid and other is hyoglossus. So this is M. So let me just, okay, so this is the floor muscle. This structure is the floor muscle which you are seeing, and the floor is bounded by two muscle bellies. This is M for mylohyoid, and posteriorly we have got hyoglossus. So M for mylohyoid and posteriorly, this is M for mylohyoid, and posteriorly we have got hyoglossus. Okay, so I will write this information so that you can revise it. So let's write the boundaries of digastric triangle. Digastric triangle is bounded antero-inferiorly by anterior belly of digastric muscle, posterior-inferiorly it is bounded by posterior belly of digastric along with stylohyoid muscle. So I am just writing the details because through this MCQs you can just revise these important topics. Okay. Now base is formed by base of the mandible. Base is formed by the base of the mandible and an imaginary line joining it towards the mastoid process of the temporal bone. Okay. Also in the diagram we have seen about the apex, and the apex of the triangle is formed by intermediate tendon of digastric muscle. So write down, it is formed by intermediate tendon of digastric muscle bellies. Okay, intermediate tendon of digastric muscles. So we have done with the boundaries. Now write down the floor muscles of digastric triangle. So the floor of digastric triangle is having following muscles. It is having mylohyoid muscle is forming the floor, and also hyoglossus muscle. Hyoglossus muscle is an extrinsic muscles of the tongue. So this is, we have got two muscle. Mylohyoid muscle is lying anteriorly in the floor and hyoglossus muscle is lying posteriorly. Also sometimes few fibers of middle constrictor muscle can also contribute in the floor. Middle constrictor muscle of the pharynx can also contribute, few fibers of middle constrictor muscles of the pharynx can also contribute in forming the floor of digastric triangle. So yes, now moving to the next MCQ. Association fibers include all of the following except. Okay, so again, okay, we have not come to the answer of the second, so let me move about the MCQ second. So the correct answer will be that mylohyoid muscle which is forming the floor of digastric triangle. Okay, now coming to the third MCQ. Association fibers include all of the following except. So four options are corona radiata, arcuate fasciculus, cingulum and uncinate fasciculus. Okay, so mark your answer and I will come to the explanation first. So see here, firstly I want to give you the basic concept of what is association fibers, what is commissural fibers and what is projection fibers. So actually the white matter of the brain or the white fibers of the brain is categorized into three fibers. Association means they are connecting adjacent area of same cerebral hemisphere. That means the fibers, the white fibers are not crossing from one cerebral hemisphere to the other. They are connecting adjacent area of same cerebral hemisphere. So few association fibers are shown here. So this is a diagram in which you can see association fibers, and what I have told you this, that association fibers will connect the adjacent area of same cerebral hemisphere. So these fibers are intrahemispheric. They are not crossing the hemisphere, so they are intrahemispheric. See here, certain short hemisphere, short association fibers are just connecting adjacent gyri, as you can see in the diagram. So this is the fiber which is called a superior longitudinal. We have got some perpendicular fibers connecting occipital and temporal, and also we have got inferior longitudinal and uncinate fasciculus. So these are all the names of association fibers. Okay. Commissural fibers are the fibers which is connecting one cerebral hemisphere to other, that is corpus callosum is the best example of it. And projection fibers is the third category which is connecting the cortical areas with the subcortical areas. Two most important projection fibers are internal capsule and corona radiata. Now just write down the list of association fibers. Association fibers. So association fibers are following, the name of association fibers are following: arcuate fasciculus or fibers, uncinate fasciculus cingulum. We have also seen this in the diagram. Superior longitudinal bundle and inferior longitudinal bundle. Superior longitudinal bundles of fibers and inferior longitudinal bundles. Okay, inferior longitudinal bundles. So these are important association fibers. Also we have got fronto-occipital fibers. All these names which I have written is an example of association fibers. Now coming to projection fibers, because the option which was given in the MCQ was corona radiata, and as you can see, what I told you, projection fibers are long fibers. So one of the fibers which you can see here, this is the corona radiata, and corona radiata fibers are connecting the cortical area or the cortex with that of subcortical areas, and the two important subcortex area and the two important mainly like cortical area with the internal with going to the lower down in the brain stem, spinal cord, thalamus and all. And two most important projection fibers are corona radiata and internal capsule. Internal capsule. Commissural fibers are the fibers which is connecting one cerebral hemisphere with the other. So we can also see in this diagram the commissural fibers, that is corpus callosum. So you can see corpus callosum and you can see that it is connecting one cerebral hemisphere with the other. So these are called as the fibers of commissural, that is corpus callosum, most important example. So again moving to the MCQ. The correct answer will be all of the following are association fibers except the correct answer is corona radiata. This is not in association fiber, it is an example of projection fibers. Projection fibers. Okay. Now moving to the next MCQ. Lymphatics from upper limb drain into which group of axillary lymph nodes? Which is, so in the option 4 groups are mentioned and we have to see which group of lymphatics is draining from upper limb. So let's see the name of the axillary group of lymph node. So axillary group of lymph node is categorized into following 5 types. The pectoral, as you can see, the pectoral is also called as anterior. Posterior axillary lymph node, which is also called as subscapular. We have got central, lateral and apical. Okay, so we have this is the important 5 groups of axillary lymph node. So in short, I will just tell you the lymphatics which is drained in these 5 groups of axillary lymph node. So write down anterior, which is also called as pectoral group of axillary lymph nodes. The first is anterior or pectoral group of axillary lymph nodes, and the lymphatics which is draining in this area of the axillary lymph node are lymph from upper half of trunk anteriorly, upper half of the trunk anterior. Okay, and also the breast, lymphatics from the breast or mammary gland, but except that of the axillary tail, okay, except lymphatics from axillary tail. Now the second is posterior, and as I told you, posterior group of axillary lymph node is also called as subscapular because it is lying in relation to subscapular vein. And the lymphatics which drain into this group of axillary lymph nodes are lymph from upper half of trunk posteriorly and also from the lymphatics from the axillary tail of breast. Now coming to the lateral group. So the third is lateral group of axillary lymph node, and lymphatics from upper limb drain into lateral group of axillary lymph node. So this was asked in the MCQ. So it drains lymphatics from upper limb. Now moving to the central group of axillary lymph node. So central group of axillary lymph node, lymphatics drain from above all groups of axillary lymph node. And the terminal one is the apical. The terminal group of axillary lymph node is the apical, and directly or indirectly all the lymphatics from above and all the lymphatics from the breast, directly or indirectly, all will drain into apical group of axillary lymph node. So you can say it is the terminal part of axillary lymph node, A for axillary and lymph node, and directly or indirectly all lymphatics from breast and above lymphatics, above group of lymphatics will drain here. So yes, in short, we have done with the lymphatic drainage. Now we'll see the best answer. Lymphatics from the upper lip drain into which group of axillary lymph node? The correct answer is lateral group of axillary lymph nodes. Now moving to the next. Perineal body muscles include all except. So you can see list of muscles are given, the options are given, and I would like to tell you about the perineal body, and then we will see the answer to this MCQ. Okay, so perineal body is an important structure of it is an important question which is asked in the pelvic region. So yes, starting with the perineal body, starting with the first the definition of it, and then the list of the muscle which is forming it. Okay, so let's see. So this is a diagram, as you can see. Let me slightly enlarge it. Okay, so here is the location. So let me use a red color. This location, can you see this area which I have encircled in the red color? So let me just enlarge it. As you can see in the diagram, so many muscles of the surrounding area is interlacing at this area. Okay, so actually perineal body is it's a important structure in the perineum where the 10 muscles are interlacing. So see here. So in this diagram we can see on either aspect there is transverse perineal muscle. So the muscle here is, this muscle is TP, means transverse perineal muscle. Don't worry, I will write the name. And transverse perineal muscle is deep and superficial. So deep and superficial transverse perineal muscles are 2 each. So we get a total of 4. So transverse perineal muscle is total of 4. Also on the upper aspect you can see another muscle here, this muscle which is also interlacing in the perineal body, and this upper muscle is, this is bulbospongiosus. So what you can see, 2 bulbospongiosis on other side, and lower down we can see the fibers of other muscles. Here on either side, this is the levator ani muscle which is also interlacing here. Okay, so this is LA, that is levator ani muscle. So this is also 2 in number. Also the fibers of external, let me use yellow color. So this is the fibers of external anal sphincter which is also interlacing here. This is 1 in number. And also longitudinal muscle coat of the anal canal. So one more is the longitudinal muscle coat of anal canal which is also interlacing here. So write down the list of the muscles. Muscles of perineum. 10 muscles of perineum. 10 muscles of perineum converge or interlace in perineal body. Okay, so 10 muscles are interlacing in the perineal body. So we will write down the list of that 10 muscles. So starting with the list of the muscles. 2 superficial transverse perineal muscle. 2 deep transverse perineal muscle. Okay. Two, bulbospongiosus muscle. Yes. So altogether 6 we have written. Also we have got 2 levator ani on each side. 2 levator ani muscle. So altogether 8. So altogether it is 8 and 2 more, that is 1 longitudinal muscle coat of anal canal, longitudinal muscle coat of anal canal, and also sphincter ani externus. So one more, one is sphincter ani externus. So together we have got how many muscles? 10. The list of the muscle which is interlacing in the perineal body is 10. So just see which is the correct answer. So moving to the MCQ, perineal body muscle include all of the following except. So the correct answer will be iliacus. As we have seen, iliacus muscle is not involved or interlacing in the or converging in the perineal body. Okay. So let's move to the next MCQ. Okay, so MCQ number 6, action of lumbrical muscles are flexion at proximal interphalangeal joint and extension at distal interphalangeal joint, flexion and metacarpophalangeal joint and extension. So options are there. Let's directly move on the lumbrical muscle. So see this diagram, this is self-explanatory. So what you can see that here, that the lumbrical muscles are small earthworm like muscles. So they are like small earthworm like muscle and they are originating from the tendons of FDP. What do you mean by the word FDP? Flexor digitorum profundus. Flexor digitorum profundus. Flexor digitorum profundus muscle. This is an important muscle of the forearm, anterior aspect of the forearm. And from this the muscle arises, small bellies or earthworm like muscle arises, that is called as lumbrical muscle, which you can see here. So you can see these muscles, these muscles which is lying in between, these are all lumbrical muscles. How many? 4. Now it inserts into the dorsal digital expansion. Now moving to the action. So see here, this is the position or action of, so something you can see, for example, if I am holding this. So if we are holding this like this, so this action is done by the lumbrical muscle. So this action, what you can appreciate, a metacarpophalangeal joint is flexed and interphalangeal joint, that is distal, and the proximal interphalangeal joint are extended. So in this diagram you can appreciate that distal and the proximal interphalangeal joints are extended and metacarpophalangeal joints are flexed. So this is the action of the lumbrical muscle. Okay, then what is the action? Extension of distal interphalangeal joint and proximal interphalangeal joint, and flexion of metacarpophalangeal joint. So I am writing in short form, flexion of metacarpophalangeal joint. So let's see this. So the correct answer will be here, in this option. Let's see the correct answer. Yes, so the correct option is flexion at metacarpophalangeal joint and extension at PIP, means proximal interphalangeal joint. This is the action of lumbrical muscle. Now coming to the next MCQ, question number 7. All of the following structures passes through foramen magnum except. Which structure doesn't pass through foramen magnum? Okay, so options are vertebral artery, sympathetic chain, 12th cranial nerve, internal carotid artery. So firstly we will see the list of the structures passing through the foramen magnum, and then we will again see the answer of this MCQ. Okay, so let me just enlarge this diagram. So what you can see here, this is the interior of the cranial cavity, and the large opening which is shown by yellow color arrow is the foramen magnum. It's an oval opening. This opening is lying in the posterior cranial fossa. So let me just enlarge it. Okay, so this whole opening which you are seeing here, this is the foramen magnum. This is foramen magnum. Now foramen magnum is divided into 2 compartments. So here it is divided into 2 compartments. This is A and this is P. This is A and this is P. Okay, so in ligament that is called as the alar ligament, and this alar ligament is an important ligament attached to the axis vertebra, which will divide the foramen magnum into two cavity. As you can see, one is A, anterior, and another is P. Now from A means anterior compartment, the structures which is passing is ligament, so it is called as ligamentous compartment or osteoligamentous compartment. No neurovascular structure is passing through the anterior compartment. If we talk about the P means posterior compartment, so what is structures passing through posterior compartment? The structures passing through the posterior compartments are nerves and vessels, so it is called as neurovascular compartment of foramen magnum. FM means foramen magnum. Okay. So yes, then the ligament, please write down the name of the ligament which is dividing into two compartments. The name of the ligament is alar ligament. The name of the ligament is alar ligament. Alar ligament. Okay. What is this word? This is alar ligament. Now I would like to give you the list of structures passing through foramen magnum. So this is also important for the FMG entrance examination. The favorite MCQ session is that all the foraminas and structures passing through these foraminas. So write down the list of structures passing through these foraminas. So structures passing through anterior compartment. Structures passing through anterior compartment. So as I told you, from anterior compartment the structures passing is only ligaments. So three important ligaments are passing through anterior compartment, and the ligaments are from before to backward. These ligaments are apical ligament, apical ligament of Tenz, upper longitudinal band of cruciform ligament, cruciform ligament. Okay, upper longitudinal band of cruciform ligament of again atlas bone. And the third important structures passing is membrana tectoria, membrana tectoria. So again MCQ is also framed that membrana tectoria is which structure. So it is the continuation of posterior longitudinal ligaments of the vertebral bodies. So membrana tectoria is continuation of which ligament? Posterior longitudinal ligament. Posterior longitudinal ligament. Posterior longitudinal ligament is lying in relation to the vertebral bodies. Okay. Now coming to the list of structures which is passing through posterior compartment of foramen magnum. So write down list of structures passing through posterior compartment. So as I told you, the posterior compartment structures passing are nerves and vessels. So please write down the list. So medulla oblongata, lower part, medulla oblongata, and this medulla oblongata is covered by meninges. Other structures are posterior and anterior spinal artery. So how many posterior arteries we have got? We have got two posterior arteries and one spinal arteries. So two posterior spinal arteries, two posterior spinal arteries, one anterior spinal artery, anterior spinal artery. Okay, anterior spinal artery, and also the vertebral artery, and the vertebral artery is covered by sympathetic plexus. It is surrounded by sympathetic plexus. It is surrounded by sympathetic plexus. Okay. Other than that, nerve. Okay, it what passes? Spinal root of accessory nerve. So write on the list. Other than that, the structures passing is spinal root of accessory nerve, and also sometimes tonsil of cerebellum, tonsil of cerebellum. So yes, these are the list of structures passing through posterior compartment. So again, seeing the MCQ, among the following structure, which structures passes through foramen magnum? So the correct answer will be vertebral artery. Vertebral artery surrounded by sympathetic plexus is passing through the foramen magnum. Now moving to the next. All of the following muscles are hybrid muscle except. So which muscle among it is not hybrid? All of the following are hybrid. So yes, so there are 4 options and we will see all the 4 options. So starting with the pectineus. Yes, so pectineus muscle is an example of hybrid muscle. Hybrid muscle means the composite muscle which is having both dual nerve supply. So it is having the nerve supply from femoral nerve and also from obturator nerve. So this is an example of hybrid muscle. What was the option other? Adductor magnus and pectoralis major. So yes, adductor magnus muscle is also having dual nerve supply. Okay, it is also having dual nerve supply. It is supplied by obturator nerve and also by its ischial part is supplied by tibial component of sciatic nerve. Okay. Now other option, pectoralis major and quadratus femoris. So pectoralis major, the third option, and pectoralis major muscle is also example of hybrid muscle. The reason is that it is also getting innervation from 2 nerves, that is medial pectoral nerve and lateral pectoral nerve. Medial and lateral pectoral nerve. Now the fourth option is quadratus femoris, and quadratus femoris is the correct answer because it is not supplied by 2 nerves, only 1 nerve, and the name of the nerve is corresponding to the name of the muscle, that is nerve to quadratus femoris. QF, nerve to quadratus femoris is the nerve supply. So the correct answer will be quadratus femoris. Now moving to the next MCQ. False statement about the clavicle. Bone. Okay, which of the following is the false statement? So option R, ossifies into membrane, horizontal bone, no medullary cavity. Most common site of fracture is the junction of medial 1/3 and that of lateral 2/3. So actually clavicle bone is a very peculiar type of bone, and I will just give you the list of the peculiarities which the clavicle bone has got. Okay, so let's write down the list of the peculiarities of clavicle bone. So yes, starting with, see here, the red color structure which is highlighted in the skeleton, as you can see, is the clavicle bone. This is the clavicle bone. And what you can appreciate here, that clavicle bone is not very straight, it is twisted, and when you will see here in this diagram, it is S-shaped. Okay, so firstly I would like to tell you about the important peculiarities and then coming to the answer of the MCQ. So you can see in this diagram it is lying horizontal in the body. Actually clavicle is an example of long bone, but this is the only one bone which is lying horizontal in the body, but it should lie vertically if it is a long bone, but it is lying horizontally. So write down the peculiarities of clavicle bone. Peculiarities or peculiar features of clavicle bone. Okay, so the peculiarities are, it is an example of long bone, but it is placed horizontally in the body. The second point is that it has got no medullary cavity. Generally the long bones has got medullary cavity, but it has got no or very minor amount of medullary cavity. Now in the entire length of the clavicle bone, it is lying subcutaneous throughout. So it is subcutaneous along its entire length. It is subcutaneous. Now this is the first bone to ossify, right on the This is the first bone to ossify. Generally, the bones ossify by 8th or 9th week of 7th or 8th week of intrauterine life. This is the first bone. It start ossifying by 5th to 6th week of intrauterine life. Now, it ossifies in membrane. It ossifies in membrane. Major part in the membrane. Some part can ossify in the enchondral ossifications, but major part of the clavicle ossifies membranous ossification. And the other important point is that it is having late ossification, that is also, and it is also pierced by cutaneous nerve. So generally bones are not pierced by nerves, but this is pierced by cutaneous nerve, and the name of that nerve is intermediate branch of supraclavicular nerve. Supraclavicular nerves. Okay. Now these are the basic peculiarities of the clavicle bone. Other than that, the major site of the fracture of clavicle bone is, so if we talk about the major site of the fracture of clavicle bone, so let me write here. This is the sign which I use for the fracture. So the fracture is commonly at the junction will be medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. So this is the junction, that is medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. The junction will be medial 2/3 and that of lateral 1/3. So let's see what is the option given. So yes, option A, ossifies in the membrane. It is right option. We have to choose the incorrect or false statement. Horizontal bone is also right. No medullary cavity is also right. Most common site of fracture is medial 1/3. So this is not right. Actually, it's not medial 1/3. It should be medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. It will be medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. Okay, medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3 is the correct answer. So this is the wrong statement about clavicle bone. Now moving to the next MCQ. Which part of brachial plexus doesn't give branch? So we have seen here the parts roots, trunks, cords and division. So which of the following part is not giving any branch? So we will discuss the parts of brachial plexus, and in short we will see the branches of the various parts of brachial plexus. So see this diagram. So let me just enlarge this diagram. So if we talk about the roots, so let me first tell you about the roots. So please focus on this diagram. Okay. So roots are formed by C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Ventral rami of the C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1, and two important branches we can see: dorsal scapular nerve and long thoracic nerve. Dorsal scapular nerve and long thoracic nerve. So yes, roots has got branches. Now coming to the trunks. So trunk, upper trunk only give branches. One branch is the subclavian nerve and the other branch is supraclavicular. So this is also arising from upper trunk, you can see. Division, this part is the division. So you can see each of the trunk is dividing into anterior and posterior division. So this is anterior division, this is also anterior, and this is also. So these are anterior division of superior, middle and inferior trunk, and all these are posterior division. So no branches, as we can see, there is no branches from the division. Supraclavicular nerve, if you will see, it is arising from upper trunk, not the division. So no branches is given from which part of brachial plexus? The answer will be division. Cords are giving so many branches as shown in the diagram, and don't worry, I will list the branches also. The correct answer will be division. Which part of brachial plex doesn't give branch? The answer is division. Cords, trunks and roots are giving branches. So let's write the important branches. This is very important for the FMG entrance exam. They ask so many times the branches of various part of brachial plexus. So write down roots. So the roots of brachial plexus is giving two important branch, that is long thoracic nerve and dorsal scapular nerve. Long thoracic nerve root value C5, C6 and C7. Dorsal scapular nerve root value is C5. Now coming to the trunk. So only from the upper trunk two branches are given, and that is NS and SS. What do you mean by NS? Nerve to subclavius and SS means suprascapular nerve. Suprascapular nerve. Okay, and the root value is same, C5 and C6, C5 and C6, C5 and C6. So yes, we have done with the trunk and the roots. Now coming to the description of branches of the cord. So starting with the lateral cord. So 3 cords are there. First is the lateral cord, starting with the lateral cord. So you can remember the branches of lateral cord by the mnemonic ML2. What do you mean by ML2? Medical leave 2. How many medical leave 2? So medical leave 2. So M for musculocutaneous nerve, musculocutaneous nerve. L for lateral pectoral nerve, and another L, as I have written ML2, 2L, so another L for lateral root of median nerve, lateral root of median nerve. And all these nerves has got same root value, that is C5, C6 and C7, C5, C6 and C7. Yes, we have done with the branches of lateral cord. Now moving to the branches of medial and posterior cord. So medial cord, branches of medial cord. Branches of medial cord can be remembered by the mnemonic me, M capital, me for you, me for you, me for you. So M, 4M and one is U. So me for you means 4M and one is U. So write down the name of the nerves, that is medial pectoral nerve, medial pectoral nerve. Okay, medial root of median nerve, medial root of median nerve. Medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, and U for ulnar nerve. Now the root value of all these nerves are C8 and T1. Also for ulnar nerve is C8 and T1. But ulnar nerve also include fibers from C7 that will supply flexor carpi ulnaris. So C7 for FCU, that means flexor carpi ulnaris. Now moving to the last cord, that is posterior cord. So branches from the posterior cord. Okay, so the posterior cord is again giving 5 branches, and you can remember by the mnemonic rat in upper and lower self. Rat in upper and lower self. RAT rat. RAT rat. Upper self, lower self. Okay. So write down R for the radial nerve, which is the largest branch of brachial plexus. So radial nerve, root value C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Axillary nerve, root value C5 and C6. Thoracodorsal nerve, also called as nerve to latissimus dorsi, root value C6, C7 and C8. And US and LS means upper and lower subscapular. Upper and lower subscapular nerve. Upper and lower subscapular nerve. And the root value of these two nerves again are C5 and C6. C5 and C6. So yes, we have done with this also. Let's see. So correct answer also we have mentioned. Now moving to the next MCQ. Okay, Which of the following paired of laryngeal cartilages are paired? So which group is the correct of the paired? So 3, we have got altogether 9 laryngeal cartilage, of which 3 are unpaired and 3 are paired. Okay, so total becomes 9. Okay, so the correct answer is paired. If we talk about the paired, that is arytenoid, corniculate and cuneiform. Okay, so for this I will give you the name of the laryngeal cartilages. So you can see in this diagram also, let me just enlarge it. Yeah, so what you can highlight here, let me just, this is thyroid cartilage and this thyroid cartilage is unpaired laryngeal cartilage. Okay, also you can see the cricoid cartilage, this is cricoid cartilage both, and so the diagram which is shown here is showing the anterior view and showing the posterior and lateral view. So yes, what we can appreciate here that the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage are unpaired. Also the third cartilage which is in the shape of leaf like, this is epiglottis. So these 3 cartilages, please note down, these 3 cartilages, epiglottis, thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage are unpaired laryngeal cartilage. Now moving to the paired one. So let me just enlarge only this part. Okay, so you can see a very small cartilages here, very small cartilages. This is the cuneiform. So this is paired one on either side. Okay, you can see here this is one on either side, this is cuneiform, and also you can see one on either side small, this is corniculate, and we have got arytenoid. So arytenoid here, and above arytenoid the 2 cartilage which is sitting over here is the cuneiform and corniculate. So you can see this is the arytenoid. Also lateral view of the arytenoid is shown here. So in this diagram you can see one side the lateral view, another side. So very clearly you can appreciate that both the cuneiform, corniculate and also the arytenoid are paired. So total how many cartilages we have got? 9. So write down the list of cartilage. Paired laryngeal cartilage. Paired laryngeal cartilage. The name of paired laryngeal cartilage is following: arytenoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage, cuneiform cartilage. Cuneiform cartilage. So 2 each. So total how many cartilages? 6. So total of 6 cartilage, and 3 more are unpaired. So 6 paired means 3 paired, that is 6, and 3 more unpaired. So 3 unpaired laryngeal cartilages are following. That is thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage and the epiglottis. So yes, moving to the next, we have already marked the answer here. Now, which is not innervated by cranial root of accessory nerve? Okay, cranial root of accessory nerve. So the muscles of the pharynx has been shown here, named middle, inferior, stylopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus. Actually, the correct answer is option D, stylopharyngeus. This is a muscle of 3rd pharyngeal arch, and the nerve supply is by 9th or glossopharyngeal cranial nerve. Okay. So let's see, this is the diagram in which you can see all the muscles of the pharynx. So here you can see this is the stylopharyngeus, one on either side, yellow color. This is palatopharyngeus, salpingopharyngeus, and also you can see the inferior and that of the superior constrictor muscle. So in case of pharynx, we have got 3 longitudinal muscles. The name of 3 longitudinal muscles are stylopharyngeus, palatopharyngeus and salpingopharyngeus. Now moving to the list of constrictors. So superior and inferior constrictors are here, 4 and 5, and one more is the middle constrictor. So this is the diagram in which also you can see the fibers of middle constrictor. So this is the lateral view in which you are seeing all the fibers. So altogether all these diagrams, lateral view of superior constrictors, stylopharyngeus and middle and inferior constrictors are shown. So all these are the muscles of the pharynx, 3 longitudinal and the 3 constrictor. Among this, only one muscle, that is stylopharyngeus. The stylopharyngeus muscle is getting nerve supply from glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve, that is 9th cranial nerve, because it is a muscle of 3rd pharyngeal arch. Okay, and all other muscles are getting nerve supply from cranial root of accessory nerve via pharyngeal branch of vagus. All other muscles, so all other muscle except stylopharyngeus muscle of pharynx is getting nerve supply from cranial root of accessory nerve. Cranial root of accessory nerve via pharyngeal branch of vagus. So we already know that the pharyngeal branch of vagus nerve always travel along with the cranial root of accessory nerve. So we have also marked the answer. Now moving to the next MCQ. Bifurcation of abdominal aorta occurs at which level? So this is a direct MCQ and you have to tell about the bifurcation of aorta. So the correct answer will be inguinal ligament, pubic symphysis, pubic tubercle. The correct answer is corresponding to the crest of ileum. So let's see the answer for it. So can you see in this diagram? Let me just enlarge it slightly. So this is the abdominal aorta, and in this diagram it is very clear that it is bifurcating at the level of L4 lumbar vertebra and at the sacroiliac articulation. So these two options were not given, but if you will draw a line horizontal, if I draw a line horizontal, so let me use blue color. So if I draw a horizontal line corresponding to this level, it will pass at the upper aspect of iliac crest. Okay, so let me just remove this line. Okay, so can you see this line? This is passing through iliac crest, so that will be the correct answer corresponding to the iliac crest level, that is upper border of the ilium part of the hip bone. The bifurcation of abdominal aorta occurs. So moving to the next MCQ. Adductor tubercle is located on which bone? This is again a direct MCQ. So adductor tubercle is located in the femur bone. It's located in the femur bone. So let me show you the diagram of the femur bone. So all the important features of the anterior aspect and the posterior aspect of femur has been shown, that is greater trochanter, the intertrochanteric crest, the head, the lesser trochanter, the intertrochanteric line and the crest, also the gluteal tuberosity. Okay, lower down you can see the condyles, you can see the lateral and epicondyles, you can see the lateral and that of medial epicondyle. Now see here, if you will see on the medial condyle just above here, there is a projection part and this is called as adductor tubercle. So very clear it has been shown here that adductor tubercle is a part of femur bone. Okay, now moving to the next MCQ. Yes, so this is the last MCQ of the session. Palatine tonsil develops from which of the following pouch? Palatine tonsil. Okay, so the correct answer is it develops from second pharyngeal pouch. I would also like to enumerate the structures developing from the other pharyngeal pouches. So let's see this diagram. So here you can see, let me just highlight this diagram. One side there is pouch and other side is the cleft. So you can see all other clefts, second, third and fourth clefts is obliterated, and the first cleft, as you can see here, is giving rise to external auditory meatus. The first cleft is giving rise to external auditory meatus, and when we talk about the pouches, so let's see the pouches. The first pharyngeal pouch is giving rise to auditory tube and also the tympanic cavity, medullary cavity. Two structures are arising. From third, the tonsil arises from the second pharyngeal pouch, and from third, inferior parathyroid gland and thymus. So two structures, the thymus and parathyroid gland, and from fourth, the parathyroid gland, that is superior parathyroid gland. So I would like to give you the list because it is important and it is often asked in the entrance exam. So write down. The first pharyngeal pouch give rise to pharyngotympanic tube, that is the other name for auditory tube, and also give rise to tympanic cavity, to two structures, tympanic cavity. These two structures arises from first pharyngeal pouch. Now moving to the second pharyngeal pouch. If we talk about second pharyngeal pouch, from the second pharyngeal pouch, the structure arising is palatine tonsil, and its cleft. Now coming to the third, so let me write third and the fourth. So third pharyngeal pouch. From third pharyngeal pouch, the structures arising is, it give rise to thymus and inferior parathyroid gland, inferior parathyroid gland. And from fourth pharyngeal pouch, the structures arising is superior parathyroid gland, I write it short form PTG, parathyroid gland. So yes, we have done with this. So the correct answer, as I have already marked, palatine tonsil develops from the second pharyngeal pouch. Now before ending the session, I would like to tell you about the Unacademy platform. It's a great platform in which you can join. You can join the Telegram group link which is provided here. This is a useful group for discussion of the MCQs and upcoming free live sessions. Also, if you wish to join the Unacademy platform, you can use my code Dr. Lisa-YT for 10% discount on the Unacademy subscription. And also I would like to tell you about my own Telegram group. So the own Telegram group link is provided below, as you can see, that is Mona Lisa Anatomy, and you can join this group, and important information or your doubts related to anatomy will be discussed by me. And my own live sessions are also there, so link of all free live session will be provided here. Also I am taking a free special session, 2 special sessions for the FMG entrance exam. Anatomy based MCQs will be discussed. 2 sessions are there, so you can join there, and you can search for me and the Telegram group, that is Dr. Mona Lisa Anatomy. Also Facebook group link is Dr. Mona Lisa Anatomy. So thank you and all the best. Keep studying and let's crack the coming exam of FMG. All the best to everyone. All the best. Thank you.